Big Red Couch, a podcast about making role-playing games. A group of GMs and players draw ideas from the mystery box and bring their game pitches to you. In which our heroes draw a card.
Wheel of morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us a lesson we must learn.
If I'm reading this right, it says band, behind the scenes.
That's all it says on there?
Yep.
Okay.
It's either band or Bond.
Bond, I think
Bond
it is.
behind the scenes.
Whose
Yes.
handwriting is it?
I don't know.
Yours.
Crap. Sorry. Can I look at it? I'll confirm.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in this. I think we've discussed it before. You want to...
It's an O! Also, in future, I will use block capital.
You want to read it once more? So we...
To clarify, Bond, behind the scenes.
Alright.
Okay.
Some days later...
Hi everyone, welcome to the Big Red Couch. On the couches tonight we have...
Craig?
Ben.
Kev.
and Tonya. We have the topic of Bond behind the scenes, which was initially misunderstood as band behind the scenes, so some of us have two ideas.
And some other of us apparently have very bad handwriting.
It's just a little clustered up, that's all.
Clustered something.
Anyway, yeah, so who's got ideas? Kev?
Okay. I had a series of things which were badly thought out because I do this, but the initial idea for Bond behind the scenes was following the logic that Bond is an unstoppable force of nature who wrecks things. So what about all the infrastructure lying underneath it so that you've got people actually doing jobs, actually doing quiet spy, espionage work in the background, which will then be hidden by the complete destruction of the volcano superfortress that Bond will cause. So he's actually almost the antagonist. You have to get your job done before he arrives and just pulverizes everything. So you have to avoid being caught by the supervillain and yet get the job done before the world ends.
So Bond is the Doom track.
Bond is the Doom track. You know, if we're imagining it a fate, we could think of it in terms of, dealing plot stress and the consequences coming up as a result of how do you manage your exit strategy when he just blew that up or something.
Interesting. So you've got mild consequence of the base is on high alert. Moderate consequence of there are security guards running everywhere. Severe consequence of the volcano is erupting.
Things like that. I mean, the other flip side of it would be that you take a leaf from Cabin in the Woods or something, and so you have the people orchestrating events. Not the Cabin in the Woods thing of they're running everything in the environment, but basically Bond gets given a particular set of tools. These will come up and be useful, and all of the little coincidences that line up for an escape, in order that all of the other countries and governments of the world are paying attention to Bond. Bond is awesome. He's the thing you need to be paying attention to. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain.
So
Is
Bond...
that also from the point of view that Bond is some kind of unspeakable thing himself, so long as he believes that the story is going as it should, he won't wake up? Very much in the cabin in the woods.
That was an idea I came up with afterwards.
Oh, right. Sorry.
In the last time we were recording this, there was a discussion of the whole Charles Stross thing of having secret agents in a desperately petty bureaucratic environment with magic and all sorts of other shenanigans, and the idea that, there is a secret agent. He's been operating since the 40s. He's not terribly bright and hasn't noticed he's still alive. He's also completely unkillable because of a circumstance where something eldritch and unspeakable happened, and so Britain is currently getting involved in wars and international fracas to give an excuse for this indestructible, horrible thing to go out and do its work. Because if it gets bored, sooner or later, the thing in Bond is going to wake up.
Okay. And in that context... So the role of the people organising things, who I'm assuming are going to be the players in this case, if we go with Bond the Eldritch Horror.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same parallel track. Either way, you're orchestrating the events, either to convince the international community that you have Bond, and he didn't die that time he drove off the cliff. there was a replacement handy.
He was saved by airbags and there were fire extinguishers.
Indeed. A magic car.
Magic car, yep.
Magic car.
It's not just that he impacted somewhere south of Tanzania, and that's completely unrelated to how all the people there died in mysterious circumstances.
So the players would be orchestrating these situations either in the slightly cynical, politicized version of keeping the Bond myth alive, and keeping everyone understanding that Britain is still empire and martinis are important and so forth. And there's the rather more sinister track of keeping the mythos alive.
Yeah, I think it's possible that the Bond-Sothoth story would probably work better as a short story than anything else.
But you should totally use that name.
Bond-Sothoth. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I was just thinking about something from the Daniel Craig Casino Royale. And, spoiler alert, there's a bit, as I recall it, where he gets poisoned. He staggers back to the car and they talk him through essentially administering his own defibrillation.
Right, restarting his own heart.
Just comparing the two versions of keeping the myth of Bond alive, where he staggers back to the car, he gets there, he plays with the machinery. Meanwhile, the mechanisms behind the scene are racing along, they're in their truck, they're thawing out another Bond. They get there, they haul the Bond carcass out of the seat of the car because the machine was never going to work. Restarting the heart is not going to help if what it's doing is just pumping more toxins around the system. They put in the new, freshly minted Bond straight out of the cloning vats, set the appropriate things up, do the necessaries, and get out of the scene as he wakes up.
You're the continuity.
They're the continuity. The keeping the mythos alive, on the other hand, is kind of the thing of, okay, he's been poisoned. We need to give him something to make him believe that he's fought the poison off, because otherwise he'll die, and then he'll notice that he isn't dead. There's a defibrillator thing in the car. This will totally work. You need to defibrillate yourself, Bzzzt!
It's not going to do a damn thing, but it'll make him believe.
It makes him think he's gotten better, and stops the horrifying eldritch entity from going, oh, that's odd, the host did. Oh well, may as well destroy Prague!
What I sort of like with that idea is that if we're almost going with a Swamp Thing angle, there is no Bond anymore. That there is an eldritch horror who thinks he's a spy.
Right.
You've managed to persuade him that there is such a thing as a license to kill that other people than him have.
Oh my.
You're talking about an intelligence community tulpa.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Someone, somewhere, in the British higher-up, or possibly even in collusion with other governments, decided that however many wars that Britain and Europe get into, however many people this thing with its license to kill flat-out murders, and all of the collateral damage involved, is a lesser evil than it realizing what it can actually do. So the players, if we back it up further, we could, come straight back to the Black Chamber or something, and basically the game starts with people saying, so, who are we going to war with this year? And planning from there.
Yipe.
Who is going to attack Britain on Britain's soil? Just plotting the entire thing from the ground up.
Oddly, I'm more comfortable with the paranoia variant of this, where you have... I don't know, what clearance would you put Bond at? He's actually kind of black level. He's doing as he's told and doesn't actually realise that he's even a bunch of clones.
I think there's a difference between the clearance that Bond believes he has and the clearance that Bond actually has. If you're going with a bunch of clones variant, I think you're running a fairly elaborate shell game with, almost everybody.
My god, that could be so wacky. Would you actually use paranoia, or would you go more bulldogs?
You could do either. It's an interesting one.
You don't actually, to a great extent, you don't need a particularly good mechanism for replacing Bond, because Bond's an NPC. Bond's almost a part of the scenery as far as the game goes. That
he is the magic button.
Yeah. All you need is your semi truck full of beeping machinery and a large number of drawers from which you can wake up the next Bond and dress him in the appropriate outfit. Equip him with his laser watch and he's good to go.
Pretty much. I mean, a lot of the idea from the first concept, the one of the, can you get your job done before Bond brings the hammer down, was actually lifted from a conversation I ran into online where somebody was talking about running a Half-Life game. And people were saying, well, what do you do in this game? You've got Gordon Freeman wandering around getting involved in all of this stuff. Can you have protagonists when there's already a named protagonist? And people were saying, well, Yes, because there's a great deal of stuff happening that Freeman never gets involved in, and if you actually look what happens, Freeman is not a subtle instrument.
He's a physicist. He physics things.
He physics things. He applies physics well. But, so that if you have a dam complex or something that has shenanigans unfolding in it, you have the option of you send Freeman and it might get sorted out, but the dam is likely to go away, and if you need it afterwards as part of the whole reconstruction after the war thing, you probably don't want that. So, you might have, we know where Freeman's going to go. That's going to make a lot of noise as he physics things. Meanwhile, we can go out and do this other thing. So the whole idea of basically having Bond almost as Gru, as this wandering thing that can help you, or not, but it's going to be visible from a long way off whatever happens. Is kind of an interesting one.
Any fool could plainly see that.
So, admittedly, the only Bond film I can actually seem to be able to remember at the moment is bloody Casino Royale. So that grand chase across the city following the terrorist is happening while somewhere else somebody is quietly hacking into a computer and getting the actual information.
Yeah.
While Bond is busy shooting up somebody's embassy.
Yeah.
Then your challenge, I take it, would be to hack the embassy computers before the whole goddamn place goes up.
Pretty much. So while he's roaming around shooting
Sprinklers
things,
go
there's
off
a couple of bespectacled tech types hard at work, hidden in the crawl spaces, tapping into the embassy's secure computer system.
That suggests two things to me. One of them, that part of your job would be to wave the red cape to get Bond to attack something a slightly less valuable target and screw it up while you do something important slightly off to the side.
Yeah, you could do that. You could kidnap Bond girls.
That's what they're for.
Kidnap Bond girls, hide them somewhere important, then run the hell away before he gets there.
So the Bond girls are in fact a mechanism to do the come on, get the ball.
I think it would be useful if we could frame it in a way that isn't so relentlessly sexist, but we're dealing with Bond, so that's kind of hard.
Yes.
Yeah, that's already gone.
On the other hand, it would be kind of really hilarious if there was a climactic conflict and Bond was having one of those arguments with the supervillain, and the supervillain's terribly confused, but I didn't do any of that. I've just been trying to take over the world, for fuck's sake.
Either the sexy villain is a double agent has been planted there just so she could lure Bond off into random directions, or that the PCs have had to go and kidnap a deadly Russian gymnast spy, and while dressed as the minions of the supervillain. It's like, yeah, that would be a challenge.
And it does sound very like PC planning.
It does, actually, it does, right?
Yeah.
This plan is perfect.
It would be difficult to do this straight.
Yes.
The Bond is Cthulhu one, yeah, you could do that as a straight up horror game. I cannot imagine how to do the other variant without at least part of your tongue being planted in your cheek from the sheer. Okay, crack out another Bond. Better warm up another one as well, just in case. This looks dodgy.
Yeah, that bridge doesn't look at all safe. We better get a spare. Yeah, that could be very cynically hilarious. The other possibility is that the terrifying things that happen, like the exploding volcano layers and so forth, it may be a chance to retcon the fact that these secret headquarters don't have self-destruct devices.
It's just him turning up.
Yeah. He's just... Yeah.
Oh, I just had a wonderful idea. Oh no, we're out of Daniel Craig. We might have to fall back to all those Lazenby models we never used.
That would be confusing.
I think we've got a Brosnan in story.
I have to admit, I was pondering whether to riff on that with the whole Lovecraftian Bond angle of I can't think of a way of sustaining it. If we're dealing with, an eldritch horror that thinks it's a person, you can't justify some kind of Lovecraftian Doctor Who variant where they managed to cram it into different bodies over the years. I don't think that would be quite sustainable, although it would be a neat riff to do.
Oh,
I was thinking that was more for the clone variant.
Yeah.
Or you could get an Infinite Crisis thing going with multiple Bonds running around.
Well, there was that wonderful episode of The Middleman that riffed on that, where there were two middlemen, and there was great confusion.
So,
one of them was played by Kevin Sorbo,
who was relentlessly taking the piss of himself, and it was actually a really good role. That was a very good episode, definitely.
He was basically playing the middleman as this horrifyingly sexist.
He was playing his Bond.
Well, yes. Oh well. Who's next?
You, I think.
yep, W. I Fleming Paphagen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ben. Well, that nicely derailed my train of thought. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I went with Bond from the point of view of the minions. So, not even Blofeld or Goldfinger or...
Jaws or Oddjob or...
good point. Yeah, not even that level of minion. Just the low-level minions. The guys who get slaughtered in waves by Bond and the environment. And they're just trying to do their jobs. So it is a little bit... Nobody thinks about the family of a minion.
Or the contractors on the Death Star.
Yeah, the contractors on the Death Star. Was that the first Austin Powers film where somebody got his head bitten off by a giant pike or the laser beams or something? Sea bass. Giant mutant sea bass.
Why do I remember this stuff?
I don't know.
I think it's an occupational hazard in your line of work.
Yeah.
So yes, a game where you are playing the minions. You've got jobs to do. You've got a boss who may be a murderous jackass. But you've also got Bond. And the system that came to mind for this was something like Zombie Cinema, where you are very much treating Bond as this force of nature. And so you've got the minions, they're doing their thing. They're trying to get the shark tank prepared, but there's some blowhard from facilities who won't authorize the use of the transporter equipment to get the salt water in and can't understand why you can't just use fresh. You're trying to get the lasers for the sharks installed, but that wanker from medical won't unlock the cabinet with the anesthetic. This kind of thing. Effectively, it's horrifying bureaucracy, the game. But as you're going along, the Bond track is steadily increasing. It sort of starts off that...
Is this an adversarial sort of game, so that each person is playing a different department? Or is it your department against the player's department against NPC departments?
I don't know. It would depend. If you were using something like Zombie Cinema, which is kind of the mental model I have here, because that has, every time you do something, the zombies advance one more, and eventually they catch up to you.
Yeah.
Unless you get your shit done.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, it would probably work for the players being the heads of various departments. So you've got the Shark Tank crew. You've got the neutron bomb subterranean drill crew. You've got all of the various bits trying to get their stuff done, having their conflicts, and meanwhile, Bond starts off as this distant thing, and then as he moves closer, it's, we took out the facility in Belize. Ooh. Then, there's been some security stuff on the security's getting up, and Bond gets closer and closer. Some of you are getting closer and closer to getting your shit done, but some of you are getting closer and closer to being
eaten by Bond.
And now we're back to Bond-Sothoth again.
It kind of fits the vibe. I mean, something that could be really neat to springboard off that idea with is that if you make it the really crummy minions...
Yep.
You could do this as basically a fiasco game where the challenge is you have to avoid screwing up visibly enough that you get dumped into the piranha tank by your boss. So you can't get blamed when things go wrong, even if it is your fault. You have to frame another minion. Not necessarily another PC, but another minion. And you have to try to avoid being bonded.
So it would also work for paranoia then, because that whole thing of you need to find someone to blame. Doesn't make them wrong, just makes them... someone to blame.
Yeah.
You have to keep your villainous KPIs up.
I seem to remember something about a demerit point system.
I believe Paranoia had treason points or something.
Yeah.
Normally they were assessed after the person had been executed for treason.
They were a thin veneer covering blatant GM arbitrary GM fiat. Yeah.
No. It was generally someone would either someone's treason was on the verge of being discovered, or they were bored. They would execute someone for being a traitor, and then quickly find enough evidence to justify it. While the GM tried to exterminate them in turn.
I'm vaguely thinking with this, I'm sort of reminded of a RPGNet forum post from many years ago of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are in A New Hope, which was kind of spitballing a game where you've got people playing stormtroopers who just are there for the various events, but don't get killed. So they're there when this diplomatic ship gets taken by the Empire, and they're there during this stupid searching the desert exercise, and they get dragged into all this ridiculous stuff, and then they think, finally, we've got this cushy posting, we're on this battle station, it's so secret, nobody knows about it, we'll be fine, and then they get posted to a prison block. And it'll be great, it's not a problem, then some fucker comes down with a Wookiee.
Actually, it would be funnier just to have them narrowly survive everything up to the point the Death Star explodes. Oh well.
I don't know, the idea of the entire party crammed into one TIE fighter, sort of Gurren Lagann style. Everybody crammed into a very tiny cockpit, jetting away from the explosion. How are we going to explain this? I wonder what the porn value on this thing is.
I don't know, we might be able to make it to half.
Nice. The other idea that came to mind from the misreading of band behind the scenes was something possibly using a system like Inspectors, which realistically is Ghostbusters the RPG, from my understanding. Just imagining basically a game focused around roadies. Not just the moving equipment around, but you've sort of got the guitar roadies, you've got the catering roadies, the stage rigging roadies, all that sort of thing. Basically trying to get these bloody awful band musician types ready to perform and getting all the stuff done while things go wrong, while there's strange stuff happening, the promoter's trying to screw everybody, and you've got these bizarre requests. And they're mostly because I really like the idea of somebody using the speech-to-camera mechanic to say, well, things were going fine until all of a sudden one of the band starts channeling bloody Wayne's World and asks for 1,000 brown M&Ms. And look at this place, we're in the middle of a field. There's nowhere we could buy sweets. In the end, what we did is we found a bunch of Skittles and we just painted them. And they just cut back, possibly as the drummer from one of the bands is suffering from extreme food poisoning, having eaten 1,000 painted, 1,000 Skittles that had been coated with brown house paint or shoe polish or something. So a comedy game, I grant you.
You're getting some quite diverse systems out of this so far. Yeah.
I wish I'd played most of them.
We should totally get on that. I've listened.
This is the disadvantage of being out at the very end of the supply chain for, well, practically everything.
Yeah, kind of in the delivery of Liette in New Zealand.
And it could be worse. There are worse places in New Zealand to try to get role-playing games. I lived in one for 2 years.
Well, there's always the internet. It's just the crapshoot of whether the shiny thing you buy attracts other people to play.
Well, there's also the issue of whether shipping the shiny thing costs as much as the shiny thing itself.
Was that the situation with Diaspora where I looked at trying to buy a copy, was it off Lulu? I looked at trying to buy a copy off Lulu when I was living in Perth, and it was more than the cost of the book in shipping, whereas here it was like $10. It was a bit weird. It was cheaper for you to purchase the book and then post it to me than it would have been for me to purchase the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
You get weird things with international shipping.
Especially to Perth.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I like Kickstarter. The whole, add an extra $10 for international shipping, and people go, that's so expensive! And I think, we're making a killing.
I feel kind of guilty about that.
Sorry, guys.
Yes, the Big Red Couch would like to apologise to the following organisations for taking blatant advantage of their Kickstarter. Evil Hat. A lot.
Yeah. That averages out.
So, who's next?
I think it's Ben.
Yes.
The last time we tried to do this, it basically cut out up to halfway through Ben talking, so we got the last half of...
Just have to remember what I started with, which is a good thing. I actually attempted to have a vaguely serious game.
No!
That's it, podcast over.
Get the hose.
Hey, that makes sense occasionally. But the notion of actually having an espionage game involving not Bond the spy, but Bond the colossal movie production enterprise as the cover. The idea that at some point, while Pierce Brosnan is driving around St. Petersburg driving through St. Petersburg in a tank, that people who tax forms say things like lighting engineer and key grip. What the hell they do, I don't know.
They hold the keys.
All right. I believe it.
I'm making shit up as I go along.
It's what we do.
Folks are actually doing real espionage, and the entire enterprise, apart from bolstering the economy of the local country, is involved in directing a giant smoke screen so people can actually espionage can actually take place behind the scenes. And that somehow appeals to me, the idea that the obviously fake is covering for real spy work.
Which movie was the driving through city in tank in? Because I don't think I've seen anything past early Dalton years.
It
I
was...
realise this makes me a bad person.
Pierce
GoldenEye.
Brosnan, was it Sean Bean was in that for a little bit?
GoldenEye.
Yeah, I think it was GoldenEye. It's one of the few.
Is this another one where they killed Sean Bean?
Yeah.
Sean
yeah.
Bean always dies.
Has he ever moved through a movie?
Yeah, there was a film I can't remember the name of where Sean Bean was a fairly low-end sort of criminal adjacent type who got caught up in London gangster scene. I think from recollection it had Sting as a bit of a crime boss.
He's
crime
got the face
type.
for it.
If I'm remembering correctly,
Ben just popped outside to
murder a cricket, apparently.
murder a cricket.
It's desiccating.
Ah.
It was right outside on the raftery-looking thing.
Yeah,
We
I
went to scare it.
I seem to remember a scene where somebody had threatened the Sting character with guns, and he really hated guns. So once the person was disarmed, it was kind of a, what sort of car do you drive? To Sean Bean, who had a complete shit car. Asks what guy with gun had turned up in, and it's a very nice Mercedes. Okay, excellent. Yeah, sort of directs Sean Bean to give guy with a gun $1, directs guy with a gun to give Sean Bean the car keys. There you go, you just bought a Mercedes. I think he lived through that one.
I think he does he live through Lady Chatterley's Lover? I don't.
Is that the one with the zombie scene at the end?
It depends which version.
Okay.
There weren't any zombies in the book I read.
That's probably the Reader's Digest thing. They cut a lot out though.
Anyway,
back to
Right, okay. Right. Yeah, I would probably try and run it as straight up as possible. The actual espionage techniques, the politics of the time, or possibly the politics. Because you've got endless, extremely cool settings. They go to they go Rio de Janeiro, they go to Paris. The space one, you might be stuck in a set somewhere quite a lot, because...
Soundstage, which suggests that the soundstage sits over the access point or near the access tunnel or something that you did want to get to.
Yep.
Because otherwise, why would you bother shooting that?
Exactly. You retcon the reasoning for whatever's going on there, and you build this kind of tangled espionage tale with these celebrities running around, blowing stuff up in the background. So, an interesting way to tackle the Bond legend, because you've got lots of large-than-life characters, starting with the director, Albert Broccoli, which is a brilliant name. He should have been a super.
Really?
Cubby Broccoli.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the idea that I came across. And you can, especially if it's for aficionados of the movies and so forth, you could put a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, literally, into it.
Would you put the players in the situation that they are planning the bits of the movie in order to do the job, or would you present it as kind of a, okay, well, we've got this tank chase going on, and that means you can do this? Sort of how much script control do you give them?
Sorry, guys. That was the food alarm.
Now you can food. It would depend on whether the folks were, if your players were more keen on just executing a mission that was presented to them, or actually kind of designing the I mean, they could be, I mean, a lot of games go for world building stuff now. Actual, getting players in and saying, why are we up the Eiffel Tower with Grace Jones? This reason. This was happening in the 1980s at the time. Look out, Duran Duran.
There's also things that you could do just in terms of the last minute complications that you have to deal with from things like leverage. Like, you've got a very carefully poised thing where there's a shooting schedule, which means that people can get away and espionage something nearby through accessing a particular thing, and then finding out, with 2 hours to spare, that the DOP decided that the lighting was crap and they're shooting on the other side of town and going to fix it in post. Kind of we have no excuse to be there now. We've got no time to set up anything else. What do we do?
Yep. Definitely. I suspect the implication is there is some degree of complicity going up through the hierarchy. The fact that these places have been selected to have the movies. The idea that they are, quickly, we're in Florida, jump over some waterways and so forth. Was that Vietnam? I didn't know memory.
Florida, Vietnam.
One stood in for the other at some time, I'm sure.
Sometimes even during the 70s, but never mind, I'll shut up.
Yeah, having them direct that a little bit. It depends on the scale you're working at. But you can have all those sorts of
So this
interference.
is even less wacky than, say, a leverage game. So
Slightly less. I think the idea that having the espionage being high stakes, serious stuff would be pretty interesting.
okay.
So,
Any ideas for system, or just?
I have managed to lay my hands on what would be the most appropriate system.
He's rummaging in his bag for the home audience.
Sorry, no,
Yes, not taking his pants off.
I have managed to lay my hands on.
Oh my god! That exists!
That exists.
Oh my god!
Yes, the James Bond 007 role-playing in Her Majesty's Secret Service from 1983. It's
believe I have a deck of tarot cards that has that exact same
which in itself
design on the cover.
Which in itself is slightly creepy. The age is nicely marked out, but in fact there are hot rod bubblegum cards stuck on every surface that isn't written material on the inside.
Did you own this?
No, it was something that was picked up over time.
Okay.
I've never played the game. I might have once, way back when, but there is a nice section here. Note for experienced role players. The James Bond 007 is misspelled on the fifth word there. The James Bond 007 game is not like most role-playing games available today. Those games are designed to make the GM all-powerful and give the NPCs a much greater advantage over player characters. Games set in a fantasy environment allow the GM to make NPCs incredibly powerful, either through armies or magical artifacts. Science fiction games place the characters in the universe so large they have little influence over the course of events. They have become cogs in a machine, while the GM and NPCs have more influence.
Aha!
This is like, despite it being a really quite crunchy and weird system, it's like this, the very first seeds of Story Now, which is quite weird.
Oi.
It's in there somewhere. It's in the genes. It's not a terrible system from what I've read, but it is kind of obsessed with James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether Hong Kong Action Theatre would be a...
Yep. I think it is very much the taste of the group, but
Okay.
I would tend towards something. If you were doing this is serious espionage, I would use something slightly more crunchy and less whimsical.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to pick up Hong Kong Action Theatre for my ID.
Sorry. Oh, if you like, you can edit and post, and we can just pretend you did.
No, I didn't.
Oh.
It's already done.
Edited in pre-post.
That's kind of creepy.
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like Argo could be an inspiration for it.
Indeed. That was probably what I was thinking of. Yeah, the idea of there is a moment where it is quite possibly the most sentimental and silly moment in the film. That is not to detract from it, but there's a moment where the movie magic takes over, and they basically succeed because of the Hollywood dream. It gets sparkles in someone's eyes.
I am so glad I haven't seen Argo. That sounds awful.
You could identify the moment. It's not overpowering, and the rest of the film is bloody good.
Okay.
So
Argo is the one of smuggling embassy or extracting embassy staff from Iran?
Iran during the revolution.
Yeah. Under the cover of we're shooting a science fiction movie
we're shooting
Iran for some reason.
We are shooting a patently diabolical science fiction movie in Iran because it looks exotic.
Yeah.
I won't spoil the bit. The bit is genuinely good. I would encourage you to see the film.
Okay.
Literally, I could just have watched 3 hours of John Goodman and the other fellow whose name I cannot remember right now. I've got an enormous amount of time for John Goodman and the other fellow who plays as the Hollywood Flacks, the guys who are doing the producing and setting up the fake movie side. I could have watched them for 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were brilliant. And the rest of it was damned good. Very tense. Yeah, so that's a different sort of feel to it.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, so do you want to do your bit again, or are you going to let it ride?
I might as well.
Okay.
Now the question is, do I go with the band behind the scenes idea, or do I go with what we actually have been doing, which is Bond behind the scenes?
Do both.
Okay.
Get out of my head.
Get out of my mind. And with that, for band behind the scenes, I was thinking Hong Kong Action Theatre, something really wacky, so that each of the players is a faction of roadies for a super group that's on tour. So you've got the catering bods, you've got the lighting people, you've got the sound people as a separate tribe, you've got stage setup, special effects. I seem to remember that roadies came up, but I don't think that they would be a player group because most of their job is done just before the game starts. They deliver the equipment, and there might be a highly powerful group to which you can apply for extra power somewhere along the line.
Teamsters.
Extra star, extra star power for when you want to change your scene. I envision there being this competition to get set up correctly, despite the fact that you're in the middle of a paddock trying to get a huge stage rigged with inadequate resources for everything, and the caterers keep stealing the generator you need for the inflatable devil thing.
We see you are half-inflated Dark Lord.
Yeah, so they're...
It really is Spinal Tap play Glastonbury.
Yes, except Spinal Tap aren't player characters.
No.
Yeah, you've got the head of... Again, it's the head of each department kind of thing.
So it's a race against time, attempting to resolve. So you'd have a list of things that you would have to do.
Time being when the gates open and the fans come in.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can see the conflict. I'm just trying to think of... Because in no way do you want the concert to fail. Nobody wants the concert to fail.
Nobody wants the concerts to fail, but you want the fans to leave saying, oh wow, this was the best bit. Or you want the band to basically give that particular crew props for...
Yeah. The idea would be, do you want to introduce problems that are subtle enough that it's not going to end the experience or sour the entire thing for somebody, but just to have them notice that the lighting sequence is just a bit off. So consequently the pyrotechnics were doing a really good job that day. Okay, so you're just trying to spoil the other aspects.
I don't think you're spoiling other people. I think you're trying to get your stuff done, and there is limited resources. So it's who gets the resources first. Do you piss off the band because they're not getting the things that they want behind the scenes? Do you make it so that the sound is slightly badly balanced? Or do you make it so that the effects aren't right, or the lights aren't right, or... There's all sorts of things that could go wrong. As I understand, with Hong Kong Action Theatre, there's kind of an upstaging thing going on. So you accumulate star power, and that allows you to change things about the way the production goes. I lay my stars out, and because of that, I am changing... Well, in a classic Hong Kong Action Theatre thing, it would be, well, my character has moved from being a third-string bad guy to being the star. Or, we're entirely changing the plot.
So
that kind of thing.
So at some level, the basic functionality of the concert is relatively ensured, but you're just trying to get head and shoulders above the other people.
Yeah.
Put in the lighting sequence that the lead guitarist has always wanted, but never quite be able to get perfect.
Yeah.
So you want to...
But that will be at the expense of someone on the special effects team.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I wonder whether this might also work as almost as a board or card game.
Yeah?
Well, it's... I mean, you're divorcing it from the role-playing aspect of things, but it has the kind of vibe to me that would work for a board game. That you've got people competing for resources, but not 100% in competition with each other. So things like the Battlestar Galactica game, or Shadows over Camelot, or a few other mostly cooperative board games. Just the way we're talking about sort of laying out star power, and you're doing this and trying to balance things so that the concert still goes off, but your area is the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it struck me as you were discussing it. That could be a board game in there.
That's worth thinking about.
The sort of thing that makes me wish I played more board games, that I actually had something to compare it to other than the two previously mentioned, because that's pretty much it.
A lot of the ones that are very popular these days involve spending your resources and getting to stuff before other people, but with no, I screw you now. If you're thinking deeply enough into the game, you can say, right, such and such looks like they're trying to do this. If I do this, I have interposed myself. But most of the games, the competition is less direct, e.g. I drink your milkshake version of Monopoly.
Yeah. But, okay.
Yeah, okay. The other idea I had was just trying to draw it through the veils of time from the last time we tried recording this. Again, a more behind-the-scenes thing for Bond behind the scenes, so that you have the players as a set-up crew who, like, MI6 doesn't even know about. They have, like, a listening post behind M's office to listen to the
briefing?
The briefing that Bond gets, and it's their job to make sure that all the little bits and pieces are in place. Again, that harks back to what Kevin was saying, so it's not actually that.
I think the ideas have all merged together at some point. Misdirection is definitely...
I may have sprung off your idea from last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
It was less Cthulhu-esque, I remember that, but I can't remember much else about it. I was more interested in the band one, personally.
That's right. We've got to maybe at least have a recording of that so you could slice it in.
By setting setting up the little bits, can you go into that a bit more? I think I remember what you were getting at, but
making sure that he's got the props that he gets from Q, setting up things to make it look like those work, but because they don't. There is no such thing as an invisible car. There is no such thing as a laser pen.
Gotcha.
But you're making it look like these things work so that there is this rumour abroad of this super spy who does not exist. I mean, you cannot simultaneously have someone goes, my name is Bond, James Bond, and have him be a secret agent. It doesn't work that way. But so you've set up this secret agent that everybody knows about. And you've got guys in the background who are just little grey men and women who nobody notices, making sure that the necessary doors just fall open. The necessary files are already where they need to be, or are already open on the desktop that Numbnuts is going to crack his way into, quote unquote.
Okay. No, there is a truth in espionage where the best spies are meticulous, quiet, unnoticeable people
Exactly.
in the right place. And this would turn Bond into a very noisy errand boy.
Yeah, he is a distraction. He is, I can't remember the name of the character now.
Him?
No, there's a really bad comedy that ran for years where you have Frank Spencer, who is just useless at everything.
Some others do have them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or Maxwell Smart.
Or Maxwell Smart. People who could not possibly be useful at what they do. They are noisy, they are a distraction from everything. So you can, while the embassy is on alert, watching him come towards them across Prague in a tank, your guys are already in and out. And the part of your team was there earlier, putting the keys in the ignition of the tank and pointing him in that direction.
I don't know whether this is remembering the fitful recording of last week or whether it's a new idea, but I'm going to pretend it's a new idea.
Excellent.
Because we're going to align all the bits we refer. And
Indeed, yeah.
Anything we still have, I can still cut in. So
Awesome. All right. So it could be a long and repetitive episode, folk. It's a singular of folks, right, folk?
yeah,
Okay.
yes it is.
I kind of got the idea from what you were saying of Bond and the myth of Bond as to a certain extent an enormous marketing exercise. And they're not trying to sell laser watches or invisible cars or rocket packs. They're trying to sell the idea that MI6 has this amazing technology. They are all that. They've got this amazing technology. They've got this scary super spy, secret agent.
who is so
of
scary,
Bond.
everybody knows who he is.
Yeah. And he's 007. They've got another 6 of these guys.
At least.
And nobody knows who they are. Effectively, they're trying
We had
to...
one guy who was 003 for a week, but...
yeah. But, presumably the numbers get
Badly.
reassigned because, 007 changes face from time to time. So, clearly, it's not a designation for life, it's a designation for job. So, they're essentially selling the idea
So
to
what did the other guys do?
Yeah, they're selling the idea to the intelligence community and to the world in general that this is what we are capable of. We have secret agents with lasers in their watches, with exploding pens, with invisible cars.
That fold out into motorboats.
Thank you, that fold out into motorboats. We have all these stuff with planes that fit inside horse trailers with a fake horse's ass hanging out the back, because I remember that from one of the Roger Moore films.
Oh my god, those were so silly.
We've got all of this stuff, so don't screw with us. Please don't screw with us.
Whereas what you actually have is 30 guys following this one noisy asshole around.
Yeah. Well, you've got the people
And
getting
you are
the job.
one of those teams.
Yeah, you've got the people doing the actual espionage, getting the job done. I think possibly you've got the 2 teams. You've got the A team who are getting the actual espionage done and putting the documents where Bond can find them.
Yeah.
And then you've got the B team who are doing things like, okay, he's been locked up. He's going to use his laser watch. Okay, let's drug him. Actually, there's the thing. Is Bond in on it? To some degree.
I don't think he is. I think he believes he is hot shit because otherwise he would not have that strange magnetism.
Yeah, the bulletproof confidence.
Okay.
It might
I
actually
think
be
he
bulletproof.
actually believes what's going on.
So
you
possibly
can't be seen by Bond, you can't be seen by M, you can't be seen by Q, you can't be seen by anyone on the other side. And I'm wondering if people like Blofeld and Goldfinger are other countries' attempts to develop people who are Bond-esque.
Except they think
they
it's
haven't
real.
got the gag.
Okay. So Blofeld is what happens when you try to build a secret agent. You give him all these resources, and he actually thinks it's real, and so do you.
Yeah, and you've
Man
got
with
someone
that.
who's actually intelligent with all those resources
dude.
attempting to carry out the same mission. It does kind of imply that one half, at least, of the British Secret Service is very thick.
Yes.
It's a shell game.
Yeah. the other side is extremely cynical as well.
Well, it's possibly some sort of testing that along the way when they're being inducted, it's kind of okay, which stream is this person better at? Yeah, they follow orders, they don't look beyond what they're told to do. Okay, they can go in the public face. This one has questioned everything we've done so far. We'll need him for the Bond program. I'm wondering whether they have a post-hypnotic suggestion on Bond, so it's he's chained up, because I remember, I think it was a Sean Connery film where he's chained to a wall, there's the laser watch, there might be an eagle involved, or that might have been from Conan. I'm lazy on the details at this point.
Lord
Very
of the
easy to
Rings.
mix up.
They're all basically interchangeable. The whole thing of, okay, so we sneak in there, we ring the little bell, Bond switches off, we weaken the cuff, we restart his heart and actually inject him with some antitoxins as opposed to just electrocuting him. What? And then we get out of the way and wake him up again. Yeah, and meanwhile we're also rigging the cards because actually he's a really shit card player.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
we
depends
swap
on
out the
how deep
deck.
you want to play this.
Yeah.
It does.
Just replace the croupier.
The credulity is a little bit hammered at this point, but it's an interesting concept.
This is going to be a totally gonzo sort of game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play this straight.
I think it would be interesting if we could almost have it as some kind of random factor, that there's this known profile of Bond, so that we have access to this character sheet that is Bond, and it's just got 3 things on it. And if we imagine Bond being modelled as a very simple biological creature, there are 3 things Bond likes to do. Really high-profile, visible shit, violence, sex, and all these other things. So you know, the whole thing about putting the keys in the tank ahead of time and just arranging the tank is how do you know he's going to take the tank?
It's a tank. He'll totally
Clatter.
take it.
He'll take the tank. What priority is going to guide Bond at any point? It's just that it brings in a small random factor so that we've got tank, Russian gymnast, tank! Spotlight the tank! Damn it, no!
Tank with wet bar.
Yeah, he's
No put any feet.
Listen, tank with wet bar. Or I remember there was one of the films where he wound up getting into some kind of idiot escape pod in order to have sex with someone, and then got fired out the side of a base so that something happened. It was very much he got into it for all of the wrong reasons and then happened to do something else. So you know
That sounds eerily familiar from one of the Connery movies.
probably
Something about a submarine.
something about a submarine. The whole thing that Bond can be reliably expected to do a very limited number of things. It's just that there's a slight chance he's going to do one of his limited number of things at an inconvenient point, and you have to kind of bring him back on message, and some kind of known system ahead of time. Would that work?
Yeah.
It sounds hilarious. Now, he's heading for the tank. He's heading for the tank. He's been distracted by a Russian policewoman with a couple of bottles of vodka. Son of a... Yeah, can we distract him? No, he's getting his swerve on. Oh.
It does.
Can we trank them both and put them both in the tank? When he wakes up, he will be more distracted by the shiny buttons than by the boobs.
You think they had sex in the tank. This might work.
It does kind of start to feel more and more like Archer at this point. So,
And
Which
yet I
is-
have so much trouble watching that show.
I love it. I love it so much.
We also love Metalocalypse, which I think I got 2 episodes into and gave up at the submarine.
Yes.
Archer, I think I got an episode into because I was forced to at Wolverine Point.
The 2 shows are actually good over-the-top inspiration for both Band and Bond.
Actually, yeah.
Because actually the Metalocalypse cross over most things. They have their roadies and their country. The Clocketeers live to serve and die to serve Death Clock. Sometimes just their cheesy snacks, but they have various roles like cleaning microphones in the secondary recording room and so forth. So they may have the same similar sort of experiences to the minions and...
I am getting that vibe.
So,
Alright, so, do we have...
we got a bunch of recording now.
We got wiggly
well,
lines. So
Shall we
many
see if this
wiggly
one
lines.
actually recorded? And we'll save, and...
Oh, we didn't get to the Dalton Horizon this time.
What was the Dalton Horizon?
I hadn't seen past early Dalton years, and You said something about not being able to see past Timothy Dalton in anything he does.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Because the power of the Dalton horizon is just that strong.
Yes, the whole thing that I have no idea what happens in Hot Fuzz beyond the scene where Sean Pegg and Timothy Dalton are jogging. It's just Timothy Dalton jogs on and the rest of the film is just Timothy Dalton.
Yeah. He's just powerful that way.
According to Simon Pegg, he smells of leather and wealth.
Thank you, Mr. Pegg.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. They got supplanted by Sean Bean and Constant Resurrection Cycle.
Yes.
Anyway.
And on that cheery note...
Thank you for joining us again, folk. We're still assuming there's only one of you.
I think it's a safe assumption.
Yeah, that's probably fair. So, have a good one. We shall see you next week, I guess.
And by week we mean the next time we record.
Which might be anything up to a month at this point.
Bye.
Bye.
Next time on the Big Red Couch.
Can't see what I'm doing, but here we go. Here comes yet no. Food court wars.
I think this one may be my fault.
Yeah, I'm going to blame you anyway, though.
Probably. It's your handwriting, not that means anything.
Okay, so Food Court Wars.
That's our next idea.
Alright. See you all next time.
Want to hear more of our shenanigans? Then go to hoarde.net and click on the button that looks like a couch. The Big Red Couch is released under Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike 3.0 Unported from creativecommons.org. All music on the show comes from the album Universal Fluff Theory by Krakatoa. Visit them at krakatoa.com or follow the link from our page. See you next time.